I stumbled across this video, and just now, I guess it was published about 2 hours ago. And as many of you may know, U2 has been my favorite band since I was like in the 7th grade. And I'm very confused by this as well, because I also have read the biography that came out when I was like in the 7th grade, and so I know their entire history as a band, and I'm very confused by this update as well.
So I'm watching the Super Bowl the other night, and all of a sudden this ad comes up, and I was like, what is this? The thing with the sphere, and all of a sudden it says U2 playing in Las Vegas. And it's like, why does U2 have a Super Bowl ad? It's a 15-second thing. So then I go on the next day and I start looking, and it says Las Vegas Weekly. U2 confirms 2023 Las Vegas residency. AP, U2 returning to the stage at Las Vegas -1.
I mean, they are aging. I can get why they would want to do a residency, because it's a little easier to do something like that than do the world tours. Typically, when they've done their world tours, they have like 2 home bases in America. One of them is the Sunset Marquis, although Edge has bought a property in Malibu, which was highly controversial. His neighbors were complaining about it. But they used to bring the entire family. They would travel like a circus family. And everybody would stay at the Sunset Marquis, all the families and everything, and they'd be there for the entire western portion of the country. And then I imagine they had something similar on the East Coast when they did their East Coast states. But they always traveled together with their entire families, and that was just their lifestyle. They were a traveling group of families.
The quartet. CNN, YouTube announces upcoming Vegas residency with a Super Bowl commercial. Rolling Stone, YouTube launches a Las Vegas MSG Sphere with Achtung Baby shows. USA Today, U2 2023 Las Vegas residency without Larry Mullen Jr. I start thinking, wait a minute. What? Wait, Larry Mullen Jr. is not playing with U2 on this residency? What's this about? So, next day comes out, my buddy Rich, who's a huge U2 fan, as I am, says to me, did you see the thing about U2? And I said, yeah, what's the deal? He goes, I don't know, it's pretty weird, right? I said, yeah, it's ridiculously weird. Then my brother John calls me, huge U2 fan. He's like, what's up with Larry Mullen Jr. not playing? And I was like, yeah, this is ridiculous. Larry Mullen Jr. started the band at Temple Mount High School in Dublin, 1970.
Yeah, they had like in the biography they have this whole thing about talking about how he was the only musician in that band who actually knew how to play his instrument. He put the notice up. He recruited everybody. Dave Evans, who was the Edge, came with his brother. I can't remember his brother's name, and I think his brother was even initially in the band at first, and then he went off with Bono's best friend. What was that guy's name? Googie or Goo or I don't know. I can't remember his name. But they started the Virgin Prunes. They became like a goth band, and U2 went on to do their thing.
6. They're going to do a residency playing a record that came out in 1991 that really had so many original drum grooves, starting with the first tune, Zeus Station, the snare sounds, the grooves, Mysterious Ways, had all these hip-hop influences. I mean, this is really a drum record centering around Larry Mullen Jr. So apparently they got some fill-in guy, because Larry Mullen has had some kind of surgery or has to get surgery. He can't do the gig. So I start looking at it, I start reading some stuff. Bono is giving the reasons why they're doing this. We don't want to let people down, at least of all our audience. The truth is, we miss them as much as they appear to miss us. Our audience was always the 5th member of the band, the audience being people like me. Bottom line, YouTube hasn't played a live gig since December 2019, and we need to get back on stage and see those faces again. Okay, so they're going to go out and play without Larry Mullen. Now, I was at Veterans Stadium on September 3rd, 1992 for the Achtung Baby Tour, which was one of the greatest concerts I've ever seen.
It was called the Zoo TV tour, and I saw it at the LA. I think it was called the LA Sports Arena at that time. Like the Staples Center didn't exist yet. I think it was called the LA Sports Arena. It was an arena tour. They wanted to have a smaller, a little bit more intimate tour that time around. It was called the Zoo TV tour. It was before Zooropa came out. That was like the next album. But that's what they called it. It was a little funky, but it was an excellent album. It had One on it. It had all kinds of stuff on it that was really good. And yeah, it was, well, all I can assume here, well, I don't know. Let's see what he has to say. Is that Larry probably originally wanted to do the gig, but has some sort of medical thing going on.
I went to see U2 in 2006 with my wife. It was our honeymoon for that they played at Aloha Stadium with Pearl Jam opening. I've mentioned this before. People are like, Rick, you're a U2 fan. Yeah, I've been a U2 fan for decades and decades. And U2 is Bono, The Edge, Adam Clayton, and Larry Mullen Jr. Right. That is the band. It has never changed. U2 made another blunder like this back in 2014. They did.
Well, you know what's even more significant about this is that if that's the album that they're going to focus on, the number one hit off that album is One. And everybody always thinks it's a love song, but it's not. It's a song about their love as a band and how they've worked together to stay together, right? Like the turmoil that they've had to go through, because they have gone through a lot of things. Like when October came out, the album October, which I think was 1982, there was some internal debates over whether or not they would become a religious band, because the three members, except for Adam, were all starting to get recruited into like an evangelical church. And the church basically told them that they had a decision to make as to whether or not they were going to be rock stars or they were going to be religious and devoted to God. And they chose rock stars. They chose that they could still do good for the world without having to make that kind of decision. But the song One was written about the fights that they've had and how they have to come together and stay together. So that's why it's not only shocking that Larry's not going to do this, but it's shocking that that's the particular album they're focusing on.
This big thing with Tim Cook, they put that record Songs of Innocence on anyone's iPhone, iPod, anything that had iTunes, they put it out there for free. And Apple, look at this thing here. It says, Apple makes it easier to delete the new U2 album from iTunes libraries. They had to come out with something to get rid of it. Right. People that worked at the Apple bar here at the Genius Bar would tell me, oh my God, people keep coming in wanting us to take off this record from their thing. And I said, well, why don't they just not listen to it? No, they were so mad about it because it was so intrusive. Now, whose idea was that? Well, YouTube's original manager, Paul McGuinness, retired in 2013. They had gotten a new manager then, and this was his first thing that he was involved with. Oh, God. Now, a smart manager would have said, I don't think this is a good idea to do this. But no one told them that. No one was honest with them. Now they have another new manager, okay? And this is the first thing that they're doing. Oh, I have a great idea. Let's go out, or maybe you two came up with this idea. Let's go out and do this gig in Las Vegas. We'll do this residency and make tons of money, and we'll do it without Larry Mullen Jr. We'll do it with some fill-in drummer. Wow. Right? This new manager, he's getting a cut of that, 20%. That's how much managers get, right? What other money's coming in besides the live gigs? No one's telling him, you know what? Probably not a good idea to do a gig without your drummer of 45 years. And if you think about the first records, boy, October, War, Under a Blood Red Sky, which was a live version. Then they did Unforgettable Fire. Then they did Wide Awake in America, which was a 4-song EP. Then they did the Joshua Tree. Mm-hmm. Then they did Rattle and Hum. Some people say that was a big misstep. I'm not one of those people. Then they did.
No, I know that there are some people, But you know what? I don't think they're complaining necessarily about the music on that album. I think they were complaining about the actual movie, because it was a movie soundtrack, right? And a lot of people came away from that movie feeling that it was very self-serving and out of touch. But the music was amazing. But I think it was the impression that people got from the movie, not from the album itself.
Achtung Baby, and that was monumental. Joshua Tree, Achtung Baby, those were monumental records. Unforgettable Fire, War, amazing records. So they paid probably a couple $1 million to do this 15-second ad that was actually part of a 3-minute and 45-second video. So in this 3-minute and 45-second video, they show a bunch of U2 fans and how long they've been following them. The first guy is a 62-year-old carpenter that's been following them since 1980. That's somebody like me. Then they have this kid that's 33 that's been following them since 1999. Then they have a woman that's been a fan since 2021. And then they have another woman that's been a fan since 2013. Now, all these people are fans of Achtung Baby, which came out in 1991. I'm sure there are new U2 fans, but U2 fans that are fans of Achtung Baby.
Well, and on top of it, like, you'll notice there is a clear difference between the U2 fans who were fans of them during the 80s versus the U2 fans who became fans of them Zooropa and later, because they started making some style choices that were very bizarre, and they weren't able to bring the rest of us back into the fold until they had a couple of hits. They had I can't even remember the names of the albums they put out in the odds. How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, I think, was one of them, right? All That You Can't Leave Behind, I think, was one of them. But basically, it wasn't until like they started coming out with things like Vertigo, It's a Beautiful Day. They had a few hits in the aughts, but they just weren't in the same place because they became so rich and privileged that they didn't have their rawness anymore. They couldn't really relate to the common man anymore.
That album in particular, and that's the thing that they're going to go and see in Las Vegas. I frankly find that hard to believe. At what point is enough enough? The Police, 1978 to 1984, that was it. Yeah, they came back and they did a few shows, but that was it. They call it quits. The Beatles, essentially 1964, okay, 1962 to 1970, done. No more gigs. End of the band. Yes, some bands replace people and go on, but not after, 23 and 43 years? No, I mean, they started in 76, and now they're replacing Larry Mullen Jr. because they have to get out and see people? Come on, guys. Really? Really? You know, if no one's going to tell them the truth to their face, or at least their opinion, I'm going to give them my opinion. They can do with it what they'd like. Please leave a comment. Hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. You can't, it's not U2 without Larry Mullen Jr. It really isn't. And they have made some pretty disastrous style choices. And their fan base was remarkably different, starting with Zooropa. Because I started going back to the concerts in the aughts, and I was always the kind of fan that would go up to the VIP area, see if I could get like tickets, because they always sold out, right? And so I had my methods of like going up to the VIP area and trying to see if there are any roadies who were expecting friends to show up to the concert, and at the last minute, if their friends don't show up, they end up just giving the tickets away because they have to get to work, right? So that's usually how it would roll for me. And I found that the people who were standing around me doing kind of the same thing were remarkably different in the aughts than they were in the early 90s, late 80s, right? Very different type of crowd. Disappointing. Wow. Not saying I won't go see it though. Being real, I might actually go see it. I wonder who they have sitting in. And I wonder if that's just a temporary thing. Is it maybe just like Larry's going to get his surgery and then come back? Like, is this for, well, I guess, is the residency long enough for him to recover and then, like, join them? Who knows?